Hey, welcome back. How are you? It's nice to see you. And I'm just going to do a bit of a talk about the new moon. And we've got a new moon in Pisces. Forgive me when I look down, it's just because I've got my notes, because there's a lot happening with this new moon. And I can see in the mirror this here, the fluffies. That's my microphone. So forgive the fluffies on the side. Okay. So what are we looking at? We're looking at a new moon. It's going to happen tomorrow on the 6th. And it's in Pisces. And this is all about creativity and imagination. And that is wonderful. The nicest thing about this new moon is it is quite an easy new moon. And we have been through, like I said in my previous video, a little bit of a difficult 10 days, 2 weeks. So we've been getting all of these trigger messages for many of us. Uranus has been working her magic and things have been popping out of the blue for us. And of course there's been these underlying tensions. And often with these underlying tensions, because they are underlying, remember it's not clear why we are stressed about this. So you can be having these instances of feeling a bit teary, instances of feeling a bit sad, perhaps even feeling euphoric for a couple of minutes, or even feeling angry. Because we are still doing this cleanse leading up to the last supermoon happening on the 21st of this month. I'm going to do a separate video on the supermoons because I've had a few questions about supermoons, so I really want to address that and make sure we understand it. So I'm going to leave that to one side. I'll come back to that in a new video in about a week. But right now, let's get talking about this new moon. The new moon is really interesting because it's coming after all of these quite massive shifts. Chiron for 7 years, Uranus for 7 years, and they're happening together. And they've shifted into new planets, but they've shifted into compatible planets. So that's making life a little bit easier for us. So that's actually really good. And now we're moving into this phase of creativity. But I'm just going to let you sit with that for a bit, because the moon, when it comes in, is going to do a square to Jupiter. Now, for those of you who don't know what a square is, it means it's lining up with Jupiter. But sometimes these alignments are favorable and sometimes they are difficult. And this particular instance, it's a difficult one. It's not a favorable one, and that's why it's called a hard aspect, or it's a square. But even so, it doesn't really matter, because Jupiter, beautiful Jupiter, is the planet of good fortune and blessings. So even with a hard square, you can't go wrong, right? So now we're getting a lovely full moon, and it's all about creativity and imagination, and that is in alignment, although not 100% favorable, but still in alignment for good fortunes and blessings. So it's kind of going to tone down the creativity and the imagination a little bit, but sometimes that's not so bad, right? Because sometimes if you're a little bit creative, like me, or you've got a big imagination, it can take you off on spirals that aren't necessarily where you want to go. So also within that is sextiling to Mars. For those of you who don't know what sextiling is again an alignment. It's basically the same alignment as a square, but a sextile is favorable or easy, right? It's a lovely coming together. So when we start having a look at how that's going to come together, I think what we need to be thinking about is the fact that Mars is still in retrograde. So that's actually quite good. So Mars in retrograde is going to slow us down, but at the same time, because it's favorable to this connection about creativity, it means we're going to get these creative ideas, which is going to be fabulous, but then we're also going to take some time to work through them. And this is doubly so because we've also got Saturn in the picture. There's a nice trine to Saturn, and So again, what does a trine mean? It means it's basically at the same degree. So they're going to be working well together. Don't worry, it means they're at the same degree. So they're working well together. And Saturn is also about let's, be solid, let's do planning. So I actually think that's really nice, because if we didn't have these hard oppositions to Jupiter, and then we didn't also have this slowdown, we could get a little bit carried away in the next couple of weeks with our fabulous ideas. And it's nice to let your imagination run free, but we've also got to use a little bit of thought about how do we make this great idea come alive. So I like it. It's kind of tempered. So we still get this feeling of creativity and this ease, but it's kind of tempered. And in some ways that's going to temper the Mars retrograde. And what I mean by temper is just soften it a little bit, so it's not going to be so hard. So I think all of that's really good. The other thing about that is that the new moon in Pisces is going to conjunct with Neptune as well. And that just means that they come together in a meeting. So again, they come together in a meeting. Neptune is also creativity and imagination. So we've got a lot of these lovely creative forces coming into play. And that's really, really fantastic. And they're going to be tempered by these other planets that are more about planning and thinking and moving things through and reality. But I think that's a nice kind of balancing act. The other nice thing that's happening, and this is an annual thing, is that the Sun is going to align with Neptune. So the focus is really going to be on creativity and imagination, and this only happens for one day. So I think that is fabulous. So expect tomorrow, 6th, to be full of imagination where we go. And don't forget, we are talking about a 2-week cycle, so it's not just tomorrow. It's going to be happening for a while, and I think that's really great. So we can expect the next couple of weeks to be all about new ideas and creativity. Now, don't forget, when I talk about new ideas, I don't just mean new ideas in terms of brand new, because we have got a retrograde happening, and we've got Saturn in there as well. So what might be happening is that we might be looking at what we're currently doing, but in a new light. So those new ideas might be tweaking or turning what we're currently working on and putting it into the new perspective. And you might just feel like there's a great need to do this. I know that that's certainly what I'm expecting. And as I talked about, it was triggered by an ordinary email that came in, and it set me on a whole path of thinking about new ideas and what I could do with this and what I could do with that. So it's quite interesting to see all these messages coming in and seeing ourselves triggered on these thought processes. So I think it's really a fascinating time. Okay. The other thing about the Sun aligned with Neptune is that we are really talking about a spiritual realm. So Neptune is talking about some things that are a little bit nebulous. And remember, we've got Chiron also in this space in Pisces. So she's also influencing Pisces. We've got the moon in Pisces. And so what we're going to be having is we're going to be very sensitive as well to the moods and the undercurrents around us. So remember in the last video I talk about Mars in retrograde, and Mars is the messenger from above to below, the messenger through the realms. And then today, tomorrow, we're also going to have the Sun aligning with Neptune, which is all about highlighting the spiritual realms. So you can expect these messages that are going to be coming through, and there's going to be a lot of them. And remember, I spoke to them about being trigger messages. So what I mean about that is these messages may not necessarily be in a form we're familiar with. It just might be feelings or emotions that we're trying to work through. And what I'm going to tell you to do, if you are somewhere and something really strange happens, all of a sudden you feel a bit teary or you feel a bit emotional, and what you notice is that particular feeling is not necessarily in relation to, you're in the mall or something. So it's not actually in relation to anything else that's going on around you. In some ways, That's a little message. So just take a second, acknowledge that particular feeling, all right? It's really important to try and name the feeling, not name the trigger, not name the experience, but name the feeling. Oh, why am I feeling sad now? Because the naming of it is the releasing of it. It's making it, it's bringing it to the surface, and it's allowing it to move on. If we try and squash all these feelings down and we don't acknowledge them and we don't name them, we're going to be kind of creating a bit of a pressure cooker. So what I want you to do over the next, do it now if you're feeling it, but definitely over the next couple of weeks, if you feel these emotions, just go, that's weird, I'm really feeling sad right now. I don't quite know why I'm feeling sad, but I'm feeling sad. As soon as you say it, for the most part, you've released it. And the only thing we need to pay attention to is if we are getting this in a pattern. That's one thing. So that tells you if something comes up in a pattern, pay attention to it, work on it, you've got to do something with it. And the other aspect that we need to be thinking about, not just so much is a pattern, but if we can't move through that emotion, so that emotion stays with us and lingers. And if that's what's happening, then that actually says there's something also you need to pay attention again. So, and again, just name it. And if it's not moving, I want you to say, I release this. I release myself from this. I release this emotion. Yeah, and that will help you to move it through. And that's the mantra if you find yourself getting stuck. Other than that, I just think let yourself go wild. Let yourself go wild with this creativity. Make notes. Think about all sorts of things. Don't limit yourself, because you don't need to limit yourself. The planets are doing that for you. Mars is in retrograde. Saturn, the planet of let's take stock and work hard, that's Saturn, is there. And also you've got a square to Jupiter, right? So even though Jupiter is the planet of blessings and good fortune, it's in a hard aspect, so it's not a soft aspect. So you don't need to worry too much about getting too carried away, because the environment is there for you. But capture those thoughts and capture those ideas, because you never know where it's going to take you. And if you start to get these messages, and I know many people are having, Uranus is already working up and throwing up some strange anomalies for people, and opportunities are popping up that they just weren't expecting. I put my hand up for that. Then, yay, there it is. Just go with it and just explore it and see where that can take you. Okay, so we've got a new moon. And new moons are normally the start of something. And this is definitely the start of a great creativity phase, a great looking at opportunity phase, a great, oh, how can I use that? How can I work with that phase? And I don't want you to worry about being too imaginative or too creative, because we've got some planets that are also there to keep you, they're reality check planets, so they're going to keep your 2 feet firmly on the ground. So that's what's happening and coming up on the 6th. Now, and again, so the only other thing I want to take you back to is we've got some big planets who are on the move, Chiron and Uranus mostly. And when big planets are on the beginning of their tour, when they're beginning of their change, that's when you see a lot of disturbance in the energies. So if you start to get these disturbances in the energies, and what's happening is that they're affecting you, just like I said, just go with it and name it. If it stays with you for a while, then you need to explore it and you need to do something with it. Yeah, but apart from that, I think this is coming into quite an easy time, and personally, I'm looking forward to it. So it's 2 weeks of expansion, 2 weeks of also looking at how we're currently doing and what we want to change and what we don't want to change. That's Mars, that's coming in with Neptune. Sorry, not with Neptune, but with Saturn. And the only other thing with Neptune is the hidden realm. And so lots of messages that will be hidden coming up what's going to be interesting about that is, remember that these messages will probably be, there'll be undercurrents and there'll be moods, and you'll be a little bit more sensitive to that. It's particularly today, tomorrow, so for the next 4 days, you'll be a little bit sensitive to that. But keep them in perspective, right? Keep undercurrents, keep moods in perspective. Just be a little bit intuitive about it and choose whether you're going to work with it or not work with it. Okay. I think that's about it for me for that. This is the new moon. Lovely. After that, we've got a nice easy time up until about the 21st and the 20th, when we start to get the last supermoon. So just make the most of this time. It should be quite a nice time for all of us. It should be a little bit easier. We should be able to move things quite quickly, and it should be quite a creative time for all of us. So it's time to expand our thinking, and remember, that's what Uranus is for. So it's not about staying still, it's about moving through and seeing where you want to go. All right. And for those of you who are comfortable and don't want to move through, I think you're watching the wrong channel. But anyway, it's still lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to do the tarot and I'll put that up. But make the most of this beautiful new moon. Okay. Bye. Be good.